If you are a B2B business and you're currently thinking about hiring a cold email agency to handle all of your cold email outreach, then you're probably doing what most people do, which is to just Google it, read a couple of listicles on the top 10 cold email marketing agencies, maybe speak with a couple of referrals, but you still don't really have any way of actually figuring out whether the agency that you're talking to is any good or if they're actually just going to waste your money. And here's the thing, I run a cold email marketing agency, so I see the inside of this every day, and so many businesses really go into this blind without really ascertaining the information they need to make an informed decision. So in this video, I'm going to give you the 5 biggest hiring mistakes I see businesses make when it comes to hiring a cold email marketing agency, and what you can do to make sure that you don't waste your money and waste your time and that you actually get results. So let's get straight into mistake number 1, and that is to not ask them any questions about their email deliverability infrastructure, because email deliverability is really at the foundation of cold email outreach. If your emails are not landing in inboxes, if they're going to spam folders, doesn't matter how great your copy is, how great your AI personalization is, it's just a complete waste of time. So 2 things that you want to consider. Firstly, you want to ask them if they're using dedicated sending domains for your campaign, okay? You want to make sure that they're not using any domains that are shared with other clients, because essentially, if you're sharing a domain with other clients, then you are at the behest of the reputation of that domain. And if they're sending out terrible emails, then it's going to impact your deliverability. It's a bit like having a shared credit score with someone who is a massive overspender, and you have to suffer the results of that. So make sure you ask that question. You want to make sure they are creating branded domains just for your campaign. You can't just create a domain and then start sending hundreds of emails. You have to warm them up. So you want to make sure they're warming them up for at least 3 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks is ideal. You can do 2 weeks, but you need to be a little bit more cautious and make sure you have a good ramp up period if you are doing 2 weeks. And then you also want to make sure that you have an idea of which email hosting they're using. Ideally, you want them to have a good split between Microsoft, Google, and SMTP, because what invariably happens is that one email hosting like Google will have issues, and then if you're just using Google domains, then your campaigns are going to be down for extended periods of time. So you want to have that backup and that diversity with email hosting. And then you want to have an idea of what their inbox placement rate is. And if you ask them that, they should really be able to tell you. Now, ideally, you want an inbox placement rate of above 90%, okay? So at least 90% of emails that are getting sent are landing in inboxes. And if you really wanted to, you could actually ask them to show you the results of an inbox placement test, because all email clients like Instantly or Smartlead have that feature, and they should be able to show you the results of an inbox placement test so you can actually see how many of the emails that are being sent in their campaigns are actually landing in inboxes. So really, to just summarize that, 3 questions to ask to give you a good idea of if they know what they're talking about when it comes to email deliverability, and if you can trust them. Make sure that you have dedicated sending domains. Make sure you ask them about their inbox placement rate. And if you want, ask them to actually show you the results. So now that you have a good idea on the actual infrastructure and the core foundation of whether or not you think this agency is actually going to land your emails into your prospects' inboxes, the next thing to think about is, are they any good at email copywriting? And what you see so often, is businesses picking an agency, spending tens of thousands of dollars, and not actually reviewing their email copy. So mistake number 2 is to not really ask any questions or ask for any examples of their email copy. It's a bit like going for a web designer and not asking to see his portfolio of work. And you'd be surprised at how many businesses do this. So the first thing you want to think about is there any personalization going on, or are they just using very generic templates? And with personalization, there are levels to it, okay? Now we have so many amazing tools with AI that enable us to do some really cool things to really personalize an email to get very specific, not only about just kind of mentioning a few things about their company to make it look like you've actually done your homework, but also to actually see if you can potentially match possible pain points with your solution, and to make sure that you're using language that is going to be specific to that business. So you want to ask them a little bit about what their personalization looks at and just how much kind of creativity and depth there is with that. The second thing you want to look for is actually how long their emails are, because a good indication that someone doesn't really know what they're doing is if you read their email copy and it's really long, paragraphs and paragraphs, dense, not easy on the eye. Those emails tend to perform a lot worse than shorter emails. Generally, they say around 80 to 120 words. Now, I will caveat that by saying I have seen cold email campaigns do really well that are longer than that. But generally speaking, you want to see shorter emails that are easy on the eye, generally 1 to 2 sentences per paragraph. Okay, so if you're seeing emails that are really waffly, really long, that's probably going to be a bit of a red flag. Next thing you want to look at is the call to action. Now, a good question to ask is, what call to action do you suggest? And really, it's just good to hear their thinking on that answer to that question, because it isn't really a kind of cold cut answer, because generally speaking, there's going to be a bit of tension between a high resistance call to action and a low resistance call to action. Now, a high resistance call to action will be something like going straight for booking a call, which is what a lot of people do. Now, if you think about it, that still requires quite a lot of effort on behalf of your prospect, who has to then go ahead and schedule a time, allocate time, actually give time to hear you out, okay? Unless your offer is really, really sexy, unless you're doing like a free trial or something that is really value add and is really on the money, generally you're going to be better off with a lower resistance call to action. So maybe it's a free case study, maybe it's sending them over a Loom video, something like that, rather than going straight in for the call. And can they get creative in terms of like what that call to action could be? You know, could you guys be making some kind of lead magnet that you could send them, or something that's just going to add value and make it really easy for them to say yes? So it's just always good to just hear them out and just understand their thinking on what call to action they would recommend for your specific offer. Now, the third mistake that I see businesses make is not asking where they get their contact lists from, because this is kind of the third pillar of cold email marketing. So you've got your email deliverability down, you've nailed your email copy. Your success is going to be 10x, 20x, 100x if you're sending that email to the right person. And as cold email is getting more and more saturated, everyone is kind of using the same sources. Everyone's scraping from Apollo, everyone's using Clay, everyone's using D7. And really, what's going to separate the wheat from the chaff is how creative they're getting with their lead scraping. So generally, like a good question to ask is like, what signals do you suggest we use to make sure that we're targeting my ideal customer? And rather than just using kind of the generic filters that most of these lead scraping tools have, you want to see if they're getting a bit more creative, if they're maybe suggesting scraping a LinkedIn jobs board, or maybe they're suggesting scraping the Facebook ads library, because those people are already spending money on marketing, rather than more generic signals that everyone else is using, like a company's just raised a round, or maybe they're hiring for an exec or something. Those kind of signals are a little bit more well trodden. So just asking them a little bit about how they scrape their lists and how they source their lists is just going to give you a better understanding as to whether these guys are ninjas or whether they're amateurs. So those three so far. Now, just so you know, I'm going to be creating a checklist that I'm going to put in the YouTube description, which is going to give you all of these 5 mistakes and all of the questions that you should be asking when you're jumping on those demo calls to make sure that you don't make the mistake of hiring the wrong agency and wasting tens of thousands of dollars. Now, the fourth mistake that I see a lot of people make is to get suckered in and allured by these crazy guarantees that I see a lot of these days. If someone is offering a crazy guarantee, 20 to 30 shown appointments a month or something like that, Not necessarily saying they can't get that for you, but I would highly suggest you delve a little bit deeper into that and ask them how they intend on actually getting those results. How many emails are they going to be sending a month for you to get those results? And with like all lead generation, just because you get someone putting their hand up saying yes, you still have to get them to book an appointment. So you're going to have some drop off there. You're still going to have to get them to show to the appointment. So you're going to get some drop off there. So it's worth just asking a few questions about that. What's their positive response rate? What's their booking rate? What's their show up rate? And then also just check the contract. Most of these guarantees, they're always conditional. They'll be conditional on you following their process, which could be, if you don't make sure you call leads within 5 minutes, you're not eligible for our guarantee. Just little things like that that's going to give them wriggle room to get out of these big, bold claims and promises that they make, particularly if you're signing up for a longer term contract. And generally speaking, every offer is different, but you can kind of go off around 2,000 emails per shown appointment. So actually someone showing up for an appointment. Now, if you're an established brand and you've got a really sexy offer, that could be better, but that's just a good benchmark to go off. And also be a little bit wary on timelines. Generally speaking, cold email is a slightly longer play game. It really takes, the first month, you're really just going to be warming up your domains. And by month 2, you're going to be slowly ramping up. So it's kind of in the 60 to 90 day range that you're really starting to see the results come in. So if someone's telling you they're going to be getting you meetings straight out the door, probably a bit of a red flag as well. And then finally, the 5th mistake is to just buy on price. If someone is a little bit cheaper on the spectrum, you want to understand why is that the case? You want to be wary of, are they using shared domains? Are they using recycled lead lists? Are they sending really generic templated copy that just reads like spam and immediately gets sent to the spam folder? So if you're a smaller business, then maybe you are price sensitive, but ultimately what you're buying here is results, and you really just want to have a good understanding of exactly what you're paying for and why it is, if they are on the cheaper end of the spectrum, why it is that they are able to charge those prices. So there it is, 5 common mistakes that I see businesses make when it comes to hiring a cold email agency. I hope you found that useful. If you're a business and you're currently thinking about opening up cold email as an additional channel to drive revenue growth, then go ahead. If you would like to, you can book a call with me in the link below, and I'm happy to talk you through what that could look like in your business and answer any questions that you might have when it comes to cold email marketing. Bye for now.